Hello everybody and welcome back to more political chatter. In this video we will be talking about how Donald Trump continues to dominate in polling data that we have at this point in time right now in the 2024 presidential election. Now we've been talking a lot about how Joe Biden, and the media likes to talk about this as well, how Joe Biden is apparently narrowing this gap. He is sometimes leading in state polls in like Pennsylvania and Michigan, a couple in the traditionally Democratic states like Minnesota, Colorado, New Mexico, Maine, etc. But that being said, and I will also point out his fundraising. I mean, he raked in $90 million in just March. In just March, he raked in $90 million and has about $192 million cash on hand. So he is dominating the fundraising race, and you would think, all signs and what you hear about this race, you'd think that Biden would be dominating. Not the case. Donald Trump continues to have a very easy path to victory when you look at polling. So filling in our map here, according to polls, of course, all of the states that went to Donald Trump in 2020 would go to him, or by a safe margin, would go to him once again. So that would be states like Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, the Dakotas, Nebraska at large, Nebraska's 3rd district, and Nebraska's 1st district, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia. And then as for Joe Biden, states that he is obviously going to win. And all polls, if there are any polls from these states, are indicating this. Would be Hawaii, California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine's 1st district, and New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland, as well as the state of Colorado, probably. We're pretty certain on that. So that puts Joe Biden at 188 with a solid lead over Trump, and Trump at 123. But, in 2020, just to give you an example here of how polls heavily overestimated Joe Biden in the 2020 election, just looking at Ohio, you can see that it was really, really close on election day. He led it by just 0.8. Donald Trump led Ohio polls by just 0.8% on election day. You can see +4, +2, even, +4, +1, +4 for Biden. And in reality, he ended up winning the state by 8%. So the polls were so off in a state like Ohio. And that's why I think we're states where Donald Trump, can't find the right tab here. That's why I think that polls that, like Ohio in 2024 now, that actually show good margins for Trump, +11, +11, +11, +17, +18, will definitely now be in his column if they overestimated Trump so much they overestimated Biden so much back in 2020. Iowa is another example. He won that by, I believe, 9% in 2020. He won Maine's 2nd congressional district by 8% in 2020. That one I think will go to him by a healthy margin again. And then you've got, Texas and Florida, states that are trending Republican and went to him back in 2020. And then you've got states for Biden where, I'm not looking at polls yet. The point of this video is how polls continue to favor Donald Trump. And if you look at polls, if polls are anything similar to the actual results of this election, Donald Trump wins quite easily. Now, whatever the polls say, New Mexico is going Democratic, Virginia is going Democratic, and Nebraska's 2nd is going Democratic. And as well as Maine at large. I mean, that one is probably going Democratic also, even though polls are a little iffy on that one. So that really leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 states that are not necessarily, some are, but not necessarily our core swing states. That belongs to the six of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. But these are the states that will decide the election. With 107 electoral votes, they will be very influential, especially when you look at right now. Donald Trump has 219 electoral votes. Biden has 212, just seven behind. So they're just about even right now. Before we get into the last, what was it? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 states. So looking at the state of Minnesota. Minnesota is interesting because it's not typically the closest, election um, in in um, in presidential elections. But if you look at 2024, there was a new poll released earlier this month that showed Biden up by just 2%, just two, which I think was a big shock to people. I mean, this wasn't one considering that it went to Biden by 7.1. This wasn't a state that we thought we really had to look out for too much. But considering everything and the fact that Biden does lead the polls, Minnesota probably goes to Biden. Now, New Hampshire, on the other hand, Biden won it by what 7.4 back in 2020. But this time around, looking at polling, Biden leads by 9, 3, 7, 7. And looking back at 2020, it's always important to look back. Biden led by 11, and he ended up winning it by 7. So that was a 4-point overperformance. So if right now he leads by, let's say, this one was with Haley, he leads by about let's see, like 7% on average, it looks like, then he'd still win the state. So point is, New Hampshire probably stays with Joe Biden. Then you've got the state of North Carolina, which Biden is actually targeting. He is trying to flip the states of North Carolina and Florida, which I think would be a huge mistake on part of the Biden campaign. That is just a waste of resources. But looking in North Carolina, Donald Trump leads these polls by 4, 3, 2, but he leads every single poll, sometimes by a really healthy margin, by 5, by 6, by 7%, and that was only in March. That was last month. So, and then looking at 2020, I believe there were some polls that had, okay. So polls showed that Biden was ahead by 1.8. Trump ended up winning it by 1%. So that is almost a 3-point overperformance for Joe Biden. So looking at 2024, if Trump is leading every poll, we can almost definitely expect, as of now, Donald Trump to once again carry the state of North Carolina. So then it comes down to our 6 key swing states. And again, polling is really in Trump's favor in these races. Just starting in Nevada. Can I please stop going to that tab? Starting in Nevada. Donald Trump leads every single poll. I mean, this is why Joe Biden has to worry. I mean, in 2020, at least Trump led a single poll of they only have 7 listed, but Trump led one and one was even. That is something that gives you hope. But when there is not a single poll that favors Biden, that says Biden will win, or even that it's even in the race, no, and none even say that Trump will win by 1%, not even 2%. 3% is the lowest margin for Trump in the state of Nevada according to polls right now. So there is very little hope when you look at polling. I mean, he would really have to pull off a miracle. For any hope in a campaign, you really have to lead in at least a handful of polls, or just a select few. But when you lead in none, that is just a bad sign for a campaign. Even worse, potentially, looking at Arizona, the state of Arizona now, you can see the same situation again. Trump leads by 3, by 5, by 6, by 5, by 3, and again, the smallest margin is a 3-point margin. So according to polling, Trump wins Arizona. Now looking at the state of Georgia, 16 electoral votes, very critical. And again, although a little bit closer, now you have 1 point leads for Trump. Um, he does not lead Biden does not lead a single poll. A single poll. Trump leads every single one. So as you can see, polling is indicating that Donald Trump is the heavy favorite in the state of Georgia. Now looking at the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with their 19 electoral votes. This is a make or break situation for both candidates. Not necessarily, but it usually is in presidential elections. I mean, looking at the state, this one is a bit closer, and you can see how polls back in March, in early to mid-March, were showing that Trump was ahead by just a little bit, but now in late March, we actually see some polls that show Biden ahead, won by 10%, which I really don't know how much we could count, considering the fact that the nearest poll to that shows Biden ahead by 3, so that is a 7-point outlier to the closest poll. So, still, Trump leads the majority of polls, especially when you discount the poll where Biden leads by 10 points. I think that's absolutely insane, and that would never happen in a million years. But still, on average, Trump wins the state of Pennsylvania. I mean, Pennsylvania is the one sort of light at the end of the tunnel, one small hope that Joe Biden has in his 2024 campaign that he says he can win the presidency with is Pennsylvania and Michigan and Arizona. That is probably his path to victory. And Pennsylvania being the biggest of the three with 19 electoral votes, that is a must win for Joe Biden. So it's really bad. His path to victory looks very narrow when even in the state where he actually leads in some polls, which is rare in 2024 in swing states, he still on average loses according to these polls. Michigan now. Michigan, a state that voted for him by a healthy 2.8% back in 2020, now shows Donald Trump ahead in every scenario. He only loses to Gretchen Whitmer, and Gretchen Whitmer will not be the Democratic nominee. Donald Trump leads against Biden in every single poll in a state that he won by 2.8%, 150,000 votes back in 2020. That one is going to Trump, according to polling. And then you've got Wisconsin, which is the one state where not the one state, one of the two states where Biden does lead a handful of polls. He leads by 1%, he leads by 3%, 1%, but still Donald Trump leads the majority of polls by 4, by 4, by 2, by 9, by 3, by 4, by 3, by 2. So, still, that is 1, 2, 3 polls that show Biden ahead. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 polls that show Trump is ahead. So in all 6 of the core swing states, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, all 6 of which voted for Joe Biden in 2020, polling is indicating that they are all flipping to Donald Trump, despite this so-called comeback from the Biden campaign. I mean, you've got events going on that you would really think would favor Joe Biden and really give Biden a fighting shot in this election, like the abortion referendum in Arizona on the ballot. And we'll see how that plays out, that these events have not completely unfolded in polling. They have not had an effect on polling so far because they just happened. Or Biden's huge fundraising numbers that he is planning on doing an ad blitz in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and Wisconsin, in the blue wall. He says that he will run ads, especially in Pennsylvania, in these states, or whatever it may be across the United States. But you'd think that Biden would at least be making this election close. I know he is an unpopular president, and a lot of the times, heavily unpopular presidents are not reelected. But you would think that Biden would actually be putting up some type of shot, especially considering the fact that he is, in not in full force of his campaign, but he is utilizing some of this cash on hand that he has. He is running already some ads across the blue wall. I know that. I mean, Kamala Harris is out campaigning in Arizona yesterday. I know that. Um, but that is not what we are seeing in polling. All we're seeing is Donald Trump continue to lead, lead, lead. So thank you all for watching this video. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want. That would be helpful. Again, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.